Thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight. I thought we'd do a little bit of an introduction about the Trust, because the Trust, as you know, if you are in education, the Trust is the employer, and then the head teacher runs the school and it chooses who the right person is to have the same culture and vision as that head teacher wants in their school. So I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about our Trust. So Inspiring Futures Through Learning started in 2016, just a time, I think, just a little bit ahead of the curve. Started from Two Mile Ash Junior School, but also had initial teacher training, so 20 odd years of initial teacher training, and was also a teaching school. So the big thing for you to know about our Trust is all about development of people. So we absolutely feel that the way forward for school improvement is through the people that stand in here, through the people that are part of our organisation. It's from them collaborating and working together that makes the biggest difference for our children. So absolutely wedded to your development. The Trust started with Two Mile Ash, Fairfields that you sat in today, and White House, two brand new schools. We bid for in the competition and were able to open them. However, our Trust is about school improvement, and the biggest thing for us is how our teachers and our members of support staff work together across our schools to be able to support the whole, because we're only as strong as our weakest link. So absolutely, every head teacher, and this is something that, you know, we don't force anybody to go and work anywhere else, but part of your development is to experience things that are going on in other schools and to share that practice. I mean, today I was in an amazing meeting with the head teachers where they were all sharing their curriculum with each other and learning from each other. You know, we don't standardise, we align, because it would be silly not to, and that's come from the head teachers, but we choose the best from each other for our own community. So no school in IFtL is exactly the same. We want inspiring leaders, and if we started telling, you know, some of the head teachers we've got in the Trust, if I started telling them what to do, I know I'd be on a hide into nothing, and some of them are here, so I've got to better be careful. So then 3 other schools joined in Milton Keynes, and that was only middle, only infants, and chestnuts. So we were a school, we were a Trust of 6 schools where we learned the trade together. Then we were asked by the Regional Schools Commissioner to go to a place called Corby, which I'd never heard of before. And now it's quite ironic. We say, has Corby always been on the local weather map? Because it suddenly seems to be very prominent now. 3 schools in very challenging circumstances. And again, because of the culture of our Trust, we've had people going back and forth to Corby to improve things, because we've got specialist leaders in education, specialist advisors, head teachers working across the schools to improve the life chances of the children in Corby. Now, 2 years on, we've got those teachers coming down to some of our outstanding schools, some of our good schools in Milton Keynes to support each other. And that is what is beautiful to see. That's when, you know, when people say, you know, what was your vision? That was my vision. It's about how people develop people, whether they're big people or little people. You know, our industry, so to speak, is about developing the children and the young people. But actually, we can't do that unless we're in it together and develop with you. So 3 other schools. So Exeter there is actually not in Devon, it is in Corby, on the Exeter estate, Wood Newton and Priors Hall. Then back down in Milton Keynes again, other schools asked if they could join, and they were schools that shared that vision. The most important thing, as you know, when anybody goes for an interview in a school, is you feel the fit is right. You are interviewing people the other side of the table as much as they are interviewing you. Because if it doesn't fit with your culture and the way you think things should be run in a school, then you're on a hide into nothing before you start. So that, for me, today is about you feeling the culture of our Trust. Is that right for you? Matthew will go on to talk about what he's looking for in the culture of Glebe Farm in particular. So we're now on 14 schools, with Glebe Farm being number 15. Now what you'll see about our Trust is predominantly primary. However, that for me was the big driver for Glebe Farm. And part of the presentation that we did to the local authority was about how we were going to develop Glebe Farm as one phase. There are 5 phases at Glebe Farm. It's going to be one phase of education for our children. And that is, for us, the beauty of it. And that's why we've got a lot to learn about primary pedagogy, especially early years. And we've also got a lot to learn about secondary in terms of specialism. And for me, marrying the two together can only produce amazing results. And that's where that culture thing comes back in. Okay, so that's where we are at the moment. I think there's a few more pupils than that now, but there's approximately 800 employees at IFtL. And again, you know, before COVID, we had, just for teachers and educational staff, we had a big inset day here prior to COVID. And to see the staff realising about their CPD network that they had in the room was, again, an absolutely amazing thing to see. People wanted to work together. You know, when I first started the trust, when we were 3 schools, it was like, right, shall we have our Christmas party together? Because people will mingle, especially if they've had alcohol, they'll talk to each other, and that's like, but actually, we do so much with each other as schools, individual schools, head teachers drive it, people in the schools drive it, that actually now they come to meetings together and they automatically work in their strategy groups. So we do have strategy groups that meet regularly, that, you know, we inform the latest statutory stuff, and we have networks groups that we develop PE provision across the trust so that our children are able to access each other as well. Because the big thing is we want this to be one family. Okay? And also, being of this size now, you know, regardless of what happens with the government, etc., we are absolutely quite a sturdy size now. We've still got our initial teacher training, we still provide CPD. So as an entity, if we grew no more, and that's not to say that we won't, but if we grew no more after Glebe Farm, we're absolutely sustainable for the future, which again is exciting for us. And for Glebe Farm to be that place where you can, you know, we all in primary went, oh, if only we had the subject specialism from the secondary school to help us. That's what we would be looking at now. As you all know, the Ofsted framework actually, the big difference for primary is that absolute need for subject specialisms. Well, again, in Glebe Farm, you've got the whole mix. One of the things that we would want from the people who are working at Glebe Farm is to want to be in those network groups, but not feel isolated. Because one of the things that we don't want is secondary colleagues to feel isolated. The secondary phase. I'm going to use secondary and primary for today for you to know what I'm talking about. But we've got really tight relationships with 5 Dimensions Trust, who we've been developing this project together, and that's Hazley and Shenley. And we do collaborate a lot with lots of different providers outside. But, you know, secondary providers, the Teaching School Hub in Chiltern is another one that we work quite a lot with. So I don't want anybody, if they stood here now, thinking, well, I'm secondary, I'm not going to get any development. Believe me, you'll get quite a bit. Okay. Now, this is our Trust one-page profile, and really, you know, I could spend a whole day talking about this, because this is our vision, this is our values, and these are our objectives. And there is nothing in there that you wouldn't find somewhere in the schools or wherever you are at the moment. The basic human characteristics that we want from the people in our schools. And the biggest thing being, we want people to have that heart and that real desire to work together, to have the backs of those children and to have the backs of each other. So our values are there to see. We are, you know, we haven't got to where we are by not being afraid to open our mouths if we don't think these things are right. We will challenge things. You know, I have really good, robust meetings with head teachers where we change the direction of some of the things in the trust because we've had really good debate about it. We should be unafraid to do that. We're strong, we're energetic, we have fun together, and fun means different things to different people. But for me, again, fun is about everybody working together and wanting the best for our children. So the strapline really is we are looking at ambitious outcomes. We want inspiring leaders. We do not tell people how to be. And in Glebe Farm, the career opportunities are huge. In terms of inspiring leaders, we need leaders. There will be different levels of leadership that we'll need to start with, but if you are somebody that has that real drive and ambition to grow, then this will be the place to be. You needn't go anywhere else. And you know, I do say to people in the trust, if we've invested in you, if we've grown you, we never want you to go anywhere again. And that means that we're not incestuous. We do let other people in, but actually we can move around and we can grow together. And we probably will go, you know, into the secondary sector now, or even specialism. The world's our oyster. Okay, so what are we looking for in our people? We need people who are flexible. When Matthew first opened this school, he said, it's interesting how people come to an interview and say, I want the challenge of opening a new school, but not really realising what the challenge is. And the challenge of developing everything from scratch. Linda's here somewhere, opening White House. She had a box of equipment. She needed a scissors to open the box. The scissors was in the box. So there is lots of challenges, like there is absolutely nothing to start with. That's exciting, but it can feel daunting. Your children come in dribs and drabs because you can't start with a full school. You would wipe out all the community. Everybody likes the new shiny schools. It's not about that for us. It's about the culture that you've got in the school. So you can't wipe out the whole community, so we start low. So in White House, there was 5 children in each class. And then there was 6. And then there was 7. And, you know, teachers were moaning that 5 in a class, you can't get an atmosphere, it's too intense. I was moaning you couldn't have a football team. You know, Mary was also Joseph and the 3 wise men because there wasn't enough for a nativity. But then as we grow, you know, we've got to a place now that the school is nearly full. But those teachers have had children come in one at a time. The induction process for children is huge. So again, that's something that for us, the pastoral care, I really hope I'm not saying everything Matthew's trying to say, but it won't be the first time, will it? But, you know, we've got that synergy, we know what's important. So flexibility, you know, you have teachers that sometimes have to do lunch duty because there's not enough staff. If we are really investing in putting the right people in front of our children, then you know what, you've got to flex it out with us, because that's not forever, but that is, because again, you're on less of a budget to start with, so we've got to be really careful on the positions that we choose. Specialisms, obviously, and especially in terms of the core subjects, we will be looking for specialist teachers. But also, you know, we've had long conversations this week about the arts and how important that side, but I would say core subjects is going to probably be our starting point. And also, second subjects, because you might have to teach more than, there won't be enough children to teach maths to in year 7, so we'll need some sort of, so whatever you can tease out in terms of your specialisms, if you have a specialism or an interest or whatever, then it'd be good to know that. You've got to believe in that cross-phase model. You've got to want to look back as well as looking forward. You want to know where they've come from and where we've taken them. And you want to get into early years. You know, it frightened me when I first went into early years. As a junior school head, I then took on an infant school, going to observe a lesson, and I sound as if I know what I'm doing when I come in, but I stood in the room, and there was a child putting a policeman's outfit on. It was like, so they're learning then, or are they just messing around, or what we're doing in here? But then when I observed it properly, and somebody stood with me who was an expert, it's like, we should all be teaching like this. We should all understand. We should all be using the language. That is their way of assessing, because the children can't write 3 pages of a story like they can in year 6. So, you know, we've got so much to learn from that, and that is the beauty of this model. Again, career builders, if you want to develop your career somewhere, then this would definitely be something that should interest you. And we are big into evidence-based research. We've got a department within the trust that absolutely when we had COVID and we had the online learning, and of course, I'm stood there going, oh, we need to monitor online learning, until I suddenly thought, well, I don't even know what a good online learning lesson looks like. So let's go to some research. And Sarah's at the back there, she brought the research to the table for all the heads, and the first thing that we had to engage with is making sure that families were all engaged in the online learning. Whereas I was thinking more about the computer or delivery, it's just like that was your starting point. It was just such an easy one, and that's the difference that evidence-based research can support us. But also we are looking at innovation. We are moving towards one-to-one devices. This will be something that we'll absolutely do at Glebe Farm, where we can get children instantly engaged in their learning through having their own device. That's a really exciting project that we're running through at the moment. As I say, believe in cross-school collaboration. I've talked about that a lot. The only way that we can keep the culture of this trust going in the way that it is if you're up for not moving around, but going to help each other when it's needed. And you've got to be open and honest with yourself. So, do I want that? And the last one I think is essential. People who just muck in, and whatever's needed in a school, let's do it. Those children and young people deserve the best, so we are the people to give it to them. And then, CPD, so if you give us all that, this could be about 10 slides long as well. We are an ITT establishment. We've pioneered the first BEd course for teachers, so we've got students, trainees, and now in their third year. So we've done this for 3 years, and they'll be graduating. We do PGC. We do a lot of appropriate body last year. We did a lot with secondary, so we do know our stuff in secondary. Just maybe we do need to learn a little bit more from our colleagues. We do assessment-only routes, so people until COVID were going to Dubai and things to be able to assess learning there. But also, we have a huge CPD platform, and that is something that we are moving onto an online platform. So work-life balance can be a lot better, where if you don't know how to teach a certain maths thing, you just download it onto your device, whether it's your phone or not, and you go, oh right, I know, or that sound. I always struggled having a Welsh accent to do my phonics properly, so I could have done with that in terms of my teaching. So we do give an awful lot. There are other things that come down the line. But the opportunities, and I've got 3 people to just spend a minute each to talk to you. They didn't know until they've just turned up, so they haven't got a flashy PowerPoint. Just to say about what the difference is made to their careers, and see if you can see yourself in this. So I don't know which one wants to go first. Jodie, do you want to go first or last?
I don't mind.
So Jodie's a trainee, so Jess, you look as if you, well...
And you stand next to us, so she
right,
can
on. So who we've got here then is Jess, who is now working at Homewood School and is working with an executive teacher, so really as head of school. You got Jodie there, who is now on the PGC course as a trainee, developing into being a teacher, and then you got Jamie, who's the head teacher of Heronshaw School. So should Jamie go first? Go on.
Yeah. Okay, so I've been with Heronshaw for 6.5 years, and initially I'd worked in 2 other schools, one overseas, and then came back to the UK to take up the post. And I think one of the things that struck me was actually I was joining a very small school, and I always wondered about career progression, so I joined as foundation stage manager and wondered about where I would get within the school. And the head teacher at the time was very much a driving force for actually there are massive opportunities, and that is all I have seen in the 6.5 years with the trust. So we supported the trust before joining, and I then progressed into assistant head, deputy, all the way through to being assistant head. And very much a part of that was being able to get out and go to other schools. While I was still supporting foundation stage, I could go to other schools in Milton Keynes and support, and my own leadership skills and development really kind of came into its forefront when I could see and hear myself supporting members of staff across other schools, and then taking on a safeguarding role, so carrying out audits of different schools, And I would always say the opportunities within the trust are there. If you put yourself out there and you get your name out within the trust, then you'll get so many more opportunities. If you're brave enough to kind of say, I'd like to have a go, and actually doing something that you've never done before, somebody will be there to support you as well and grow you into a role that maybe you didn't even know existed. So definitely the place to be.
So I very much started my journey with the trust as a pupil at Tumalash School, which was a very long time ago. And leaving there, I can see both from a pupil side and now as a teacher side, how pupils are put very much at the forefront of the education, very much at the forefront of the school, and how they are very important in progressing not only them as themselves in the academic side, but also how important it is for them as their individuality. And I experienced it myself as a pupil, but I can see how it's been incorporated into their teaching and doing their ITT that we're doing at the moment. I am currently at Fairfields, and I can see how it's very, sorry, this is my first time doing this. I can see how, both from Tumalash and from Fairfields, how they've worked together to put across our teaching and to put it towards the students.
Thank you.
I don't know how I'm going to cram me into a minute. I talk a lot. So, I'm Jess Elford. I hold many hats. So I started off at Heronshaw before we even joined the trust. But there was always that driving force that actually we knew we wanted to be part of something much bigger. In the 10 years that I've worked, at Heronshaw and now at Holmwood, I've had 2 children. I'm 31 and I never ever thought that I would be in the position I'm in at my age, and that is solely down to working within the IFtL Trust. The opportunities, as Jamie said, are there if you want them. So I started out as NQT, went to class teacher, did a bit of maternity cover for a phase leave post, and then we joined the trust, and that's when my career really started to take off. And again, I do completely put that down to the trust and being part of something bigger. I then became a foundation stage lead, which I absolutely loved. And then other opportunities started coming about. So I was given the opportunity to start delivering some teacher training for the postgrad and the undergrad course for PE, which was brilliant. I love doing that, really enjoyable. I still do it now. And then from there, I then started doing some teacher training for maths and became a specialist leader in education for maths. And now subsequently, I'm the specialist advisor for maths across the trust. So I go into other schools and I support other schools with their maths. But what was really lovely about that was I got to see other things. So I was at Heronshaw for 10 years from an NQT, and I only ever knew an infant school. I knew nothing else. But through the trust, I was able to go and see junior schools. I was able to see all through primaries, and I was able, while supporting other schools, to develop my own career. And as I said, I never would have been in the position I am now without this trust. I completely believe in it, and I'm not trying to pitch this and make you all come and work here if you don't want to, but I absolutely would. And it is, you are part of something much bigger, and that's really, really important.
Okay, thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. Okay, so there's the people we work in. Let's move into Glebe Farm now. But these are the people that we work very closely with. You've got 5 dimensions there. St Mary's Wavendon, as the school grows, St Mary's will have a 3-form entry, Glebe Farm will have 3-form entry primary, and the 2 will go into 6-form secondary. So it's crucial that we have really good relationships with St Mary's, because we want our children to come through where the St Mary's children don't feel like the outsider, because the other ones have made their stake in the ground in terms of their school. And then we're very much involved in the community, so we work with the parish council at the moment. Morgan Sindel is the group that we are developing the school with, and they've taken on board lots of our ideas that we wanted something a little bit different. And then obviously, yes. So without further ado, I know I'm the warm-up act, and we've got no pressure, but we've got the main act who's going to come now. Matthew Shotton is the new head of Glebe Farm. So he is accompanied by Sharon Forbes that's somewhere here. So Sharon is project managing and will be a key player on the support side. So if there's any people I know I spoke to earlier who want to talk about support roles, and we don't call them support, we call them professional services, because we don't just think that your role is all about supporting. We want you to have your own identity. And that is it at the moment. Those are the two key players at the moment who have a big project to deliver. Yes, we've got the whole trust behind them, but Matthew needs his team to work with him. So I'll introduce you to Matthew.
I'm definitely not sharing my slides, Anna, with Sarah anymore.
I've said half of it.
Because I think half the presentation has already been said. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, Rob, that the speech has been recorded, and I do believe the promise of a one-to-one digital device has now been made public. So we've got a recording, so thanks a lot, Rob. So from our point of view, we just thought we'd share this just to start us off, because this is an overhead drone that has taken this and it's showing us the site in September 21. And obviously the plans around the room will show you what the school will look like when it's fully built. But I just thought it's quite a nice little slide that gets whets the appetite of what the school will look like. But it's a purpose-built, state-of-the-art school. I know there's been lots of questions around facilities. I'd probably be here all night talking about the individual facilities we're going to have. But the boards hopefully will answer those questions. But I'm here tonight really to talk about culture and to talk about vision and what that culture and vision is going to look like at Glebe. So I thought I'd start with, this is a photograph of my school in the Rhondda Valleys, Ferndale in South Wales. The reality is I tried to sell the Rhondda Valleys and I tried to sell Wales as a beautiful place to be, but when you look at that picture, it doesn't do it justice, it looks a bit bleak, but I promise you it's not like that. But that's where it started for me, and the reason why I'm taking the journey back there is because along the way, we're going to talk about leadership and my learning journey, but also I think it's really important that I reflect on who I am. That's going to draw out my moral compass as to how the vision for Glebe Farm will be set. So you put yourself out there straight away. That was me at the age of 7 years of age, diagnosed with Perthes disease of the hip. Would have been considered a disadvantaged child. Probably on everybody's pupil premium list now, because obviously being Welsh and in England, I'd be on your EAL register as well. But the reason I don't put that up there for sympathy. The reason why I'm showing that is later on in the slide you'll see what my dream was. And unfortunately, for every Welsh boy growing up in Wales, your ultimate dream is to play rugby for Wales and to get that professional contract. And obviously, as a child that was in plaster like that for the best part of 6 years, that dream at that point was obviously shattered. However, we talk about inspirational people, and there's a whole host, and we obviously all have inspirational people in our lives, but this man was probably the first person that inspired me, other than my grandparents. He was the one, and I'll tell you a story why he inspired me so much. So I was in year 5 and in plaster, and we were going on a trip to the Santa Maria, Christopher Columbus's ship, and when we got there, we were told that there was no wheelchair access and that I couldn't go on the trip. And it was his decision there and then as to what is he going to do. And the decision that he made has ultimately changed the way that I look at things in life. He decided that he was not going to allow me to miss out on that experience that everybody else was going to experience. So he carried me around for 2.5 hours on that ship to give me the experience that everybody else had. And I suppose it was at that point that I felt that there are genuinely people out there that care for others. I'm just putting that up there, again, not blowing my own trumpet, but the reality was I did go on to play semi-professional rugby, and then I was also named in the Scarlet squad, played in South Africa, and did live that dream, very short-lived dream of being a professional rugby player. However, the hamstring snapped, and this became, unfortunately, a sight that I was seeing more and more. But the reality was, yes, I looked at it as disappointment. The other thing was that my grandmother every Sunday or every Saturday would say, don't go and play rugby, stay at home by the fire and have a cutch. The reality is, being from the Rhondda, you've got to show that you're macho, but in reality, that's what it became. It didn't stop me. I still carried on playing rugby, and I say I still play now, but it's a very loose sense of the word. I just turn up on a Saturday when I can be bothered, and then rest for another 6 months until my body's recovered for the next go. But it was at that point then I decided what's next for me, and that's when I turned to teaching. And I grew up in a family of teachers, and it's where you started to see the joy on others when they're achieving things that you only dreamt of achieving perhaps, or that you see in them taking enjoyment in what they genuinely believe. And the reason why I put that picture is because I have been known to blur boundaries, and I have been known to challenge. And that was a team in Merthyr Tydfil. That was a school rugby team that would only usually play other schools. But I saw such a group of talented, young, passionate, driven people that they wanted to represent the school. So we entered into a league, and we went from strength to strength, and we ended up playing in the Principality Stadium, or what was then the Millennium Stadium, and they won the All Welsh Cup at Year 6 level. But that wouldn't have happened because they were just a school team. They wouldn't have been able to represent the school, but it was that constant challenging to get them in there. Then in 2012, I decided to swap the sheep for the concrete cows and leave the Rhondda for Milton Keynes, and that was to bring a whole host of new challenges for myself. So I know what you're thinking, look how young, naive and fresh-faced he was there. Started off at Orchard Academy, and I suppose that was a baptism of fire for myself. Growing up in the Rhondda Valleys, completely different world to Milton Keynes, but very quickly learnt so much from the amazing young people. And that school was a school that was in desperate need of support, and we moored up alongside 2 Mile Ash School. And I suppose even though that wasn't where the trust started, that's where the connection and the relationships started, in the sense that with Sarah being the executive head over Orchard, working at 2 Mile Ash, that collaboration and that teamwork meant that this school went from being a school that was judged or deemed inadequate in 2012, we had a letter saying we're the worst 200 performing schools, to then receiving a letter in 2017 saying that we were top 10% nationally with data, and the school had transformed. And that wasn't because of myself or individuals, it was because it was a whole school, whole trust, collaboration approach. Then in 2017, had the perfect opportunity to open Fairfields Primary School, the school that we stand in now, and we are extremely proud of the school that this has become. We've got a team of amazing teachers and professional service staff, but also we've got some of the most amazing children that we've ever met. Then an opportunity came to go and support a school in Corby, a school that was struggling, and I have to say that I suppose it's at this school that where we talk about culture and where we talk about the beliefs coming next, this is where it really started. And I'm going to say that this probably the most disadvantaged school that I've ever walked in, working with some of the most in-need parents and families. And it was all about, what's making a difference, or what can we do to make a difference in this school? Because this school has been in and out of special measures for 20 years. And what stood out more than anything was about caring for these children. And I think that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about how all those experiences and how they now translate to the culture, the vision that will be at Glebe Farm. So I've got their leadership slide, but the leadership is about culture. And I know that Sarah's touched on this, but it's about having leaders at every level. And I genuinely believe that when we talk about that leadership, we talk about mucking in, getting involved. The only decision that we make is what's right for the children at that time. That is the decision that we have to make in that moment, is what is right to support those children and young people at that time. So that is around the one heartbeat working together for success. That is the ultimate expectation at Glebe Farm. If you take a second to read that. Quite a poignant message when we're talking around attachment-informed practice. And I know that this, colleagues, probably politically incorrect, but I do believe that we will love these children and love these young people to a point that we will run through a brick wall for them. Because I tell you now, if we will have that mindset and that culture throughout our school, then I can bet our bottom dollar that they will run through a brick wall for us as well. So the bottom line is, and I know this might sound fluffy and woolly, but we will love our children. We will be in the moment to support each and every one of our young person, children, student. We haven't even decided on what term we're going to use yet. But the reality is, it takes a village to raise a child. Big believer in the fact that we will have children and families will be at the heart. And Sharon coming on board with her experience in how we drive community, that is going to be so important for us, because we want to be, as Fairfields is, the beating heart of a new and developing community. We want to celebrate our family, and we use the word family a lot. That is the reality, is that we are a family. We're there to support each other. We're there to be in the moment with each other. We're there to, sometimes, it could be, when somebody says to me about your leadership experience, it's not all roses. Some days are tougher than others, but it's about somebody recognising when you're in need and stepping up to be that support for you. The hub for community activity, support and nurture, that's going to be looking at pastoral systems. That's going to be looking at how we support each other. We will have high expectations. With the facilities that we have, why would we not want our students representing the school in all different various competitions? So we'd want the name Glebe Farm. The logo, probably 2 weeks old, we decided on that logo, and it's not even set in stone yet, but that is ultimately, we're starting something from scratch. So people are looking, people are watching. We've got to make sure that we hit Milton Keynes hard. And we want to be an innovative school that inspires future generations. We talked about the one-to-one digital device strategy. We're talking about how we can be different. We know we're going to be using STEAM and STEM. We know we're going to be innovative, technology rich, but ultimately as well, it's about fairness. For me, it's all about giving every single person the opportunity to reach the fruit. Ofsted used this in one of their speeches, where we talk about, if we do not provide foundations for these children to succeed, all we're creating is a world where the rich get richer and the poorer become poorer. And that is not the expectation at Glebe Farm. The expectation will always be, what are we doing to make it a level playing field for every one of our children, young person, student, to achieve the fruit? And that doesn't necessarily mean GCSE level. Yeah, great. If we live in an ideal world, we want a percentage at the end of every year 11 that is that. But it's not about that. It's about looking at the starting point. It's about looking at the whole child. And I think for me, that is ultimately the question I will always ask. And that's what people will always say about me as a leader, that I am fair. I am absolutely fair, and that is what I ultimately believe in. So, when we look at this is ultimately about being in the moment with someone, and it'll lead on to one of the values that we've decided, that I've decided, that is going to be so powerful at Glebe. So this for me is alluding to having the value of empathy and being able to support and understand. The reality is, children carry their previous experiences with them, and whose behaviour in the present is profoundly affected by what has gone before. And that's the harsh reality of life. And this is about, we don't have to be clinical psychologists to make a difference to a child. We just have to care. And Rita Pearson says it in a nutshell. Every child deserves a champion. And I think for me, she said something else which I think is more powerful. She also says, children don't learn from adults they don't like. And that's the bottom line. So we at Glebe Farm, for me, this is about, you call it tutor time, call it crew time, call it whatever you want. This is about being in the moment with those young people, with the children. Who's going to look the child in the white of their eyes? Who's got their back? Who's making a genuine difference to these children? Who's propelling them, giving them the opportunities so that they can go on to achieve? The right team make all the difference, and that is where, for me, recruitment is essential. And it's about making sure that people come with the right heart and the right passion to genuinely want to make a difference, to transform students' lives. And when we talk about experiences and opportunities, that's about us constantly challenging ourselves to make sure that we are providing the very best opportunities, that we are looking to new experiences, so that we've got, and I'm going to use Jodie as an example here. You are a tough crowd to stand in front of. I was thinking at one point, I don't know whether it's easier standing in front of you or standing in front of parents at Corby in Exeter. But the reality is, to stand in front of you is nerve-wracking. And for someone like Jodie to come tonight and do that just pays testament to what we're going to believe in and what we're going to do. And we took some Year 6 children to the last open evening that we did for Year 7, and the way that the children talked and spoke so articulately about their journey and about what school life is for them. It's about looking at what are we doing that's going to set them up for life. So it's not about the school in that sense. It's about making sure that they know that we've all got their back, that we will do whatever it takes to give them the best opportunities, because there's a big world out there. And we are, somebody said to me, we're educating students for jobs now that don't even exist tomorrow. But there are some jobs that still exist, that have changed and adapted and evolved over time. And it's about how are we bringing children into the 21st century. We had a conversation last week at an Apple event where we talked about, actually, as teachers, some of us, I can't speak for all in the room, but some of us are still teaching the way that we were taught. Perhaps the only thing that's changed is we have an interactive whiteboard but in terms of that one-to-one strategy, that digital device, giving children the opportunity to bring their learning to their own device, maybe we're not doing that. So it's about making sure we bring children into the 21st century and give them the opportunities to be successful. So these are the core values at Glebe Farm. We're looking to be pushing the value of integrity. And for me, integrity is about doing the right thing when nobody's watching. That's what we will instill in our children and young people. We will want responsible citizens. We will want children with that level of wanting to endeavour, that nothing is too great. We will do it. We'll have that growth mindset. We can be whatever we want to be, because we know we've got a Praetorian Guard around us who are going to support us to achieve. We want to be brave. And ultimately, we want to have empathy, and we want to teach our students and young people to have empathy, which is probably one of the hardest things that we can do in this day and age. And I want to allude to a story now. Last week, and he's actually talking on Thursday at the NEC conference about a young lad who was all was well in his world, was going to school. I won't name the school, but was going to school, and I met him through rugby, and probably very naive of me, thought that he was quite well off. Everything looked like he had a great upbringing, and was in a school that I would have thought there would have never been any issues. And he was, something tragic happened in his life, where there was an accident at work, and his father had seriously hurt another colleague accidentally. But the father had a breakdown as a result of what had happened, and completely changed the dynamics of family life, and took it out on the young lad. So the young lad then became quite disengaged, was constantly being shouted at, went to school, and it goes back to what we talk about, that empathy, going back to what we're talking about, being that champion. He didn't have a champion. And because of his behaviour, because he was disengaged, he was then excluded from school. Excluded from that school, went to another school, got in the wrong crowd. Ended up being part of of a gang where they were dealing drugs, and it ended with him witnessing firsthand his best mate getting stabbed, and ultimately ended up in prison for what was going on. However, he's changed his life and is now working as director for the Northampton Saints Foundation, and he's all about giving something back. So working with him at Exeter in Corby has really opened my eyes to actually how we get it so very wrong, but actually he's a good example to give that actually things worked out well for him. But how many students and young people across Milton Keynes do we get it wrong and there's no recovery? So when we talk in a curriculum, it's a spiral curriculum, and there's lots of fantastic things that we can learn from the early years practice that potentially as we transition through school gets lost. But what we want to do at Glebe Farm, and what we will do at Glebe Farm, is blur those boundaries. That it is about, supporting transition between each key phase. And the one thing we cannot have is a secondary and primary divide. We are an all-through school. And it's about understanding and learning from each other at every point to ensure that we are developing future curriculums. If we take year 7, we'll have 120 year 7, but we've got to develop a curriculum for year 8, year 9, year 10. We've then got to develop the GCSE curriculum for these students. So there's a lot of planning and a lot of work that needs to go in to get in the right curriculum. But actually we need to look beyond as well and look. It's that spiral. We're looking up and down. We're learning from each other at every phase. What's that reading curriculum? Right the way from early years, right the way through to GCSE. And then obviously at Glebe Farm we don't have yet a sixth form, but it's about building relationships with local sixth form providers. It's also about networking with companies and organisations, looking at apprenticeships, but it's about making sure that we create opportunities for the young people and that they've got options at the end. So I've talked about how we will be, a STEAM school, how we will be a centre of innovation, and how we will want our young people, in Milton Keynes, that need to know how Milton Keynes has evolved and developed over years, but also know how they're going to give something back. And at Glebe Farm, it is a net carbon zero school to all intents and purposes. We don't have any gas. It's all about being that sustainable school. So it's about how we're educating these young people to be the next best thing when it comes to sustainable futures. Educating their parents, transforming the way they live to understand their carbon footprint and how they're having an impact on the world. So in a state-of-the-art school, we've got to make sure that we bring in that knowledge, and that's a really exciting opportunity for us as well. So, finally, I just wanted to read that slide, and I think, in a nutshell, that's what Glebe Farm is all about. We will not be a school that ignores our greatest gift. We will be a school that is there. We will listen.